Wow, that was fun. Lulu Picart, like you guys are in for a real treat. She has a lot to say. She's very talented. She's up to some really powerful stuff too. She's using creativity to really make the most of her life. And her stories about music and her stories about what it's like to be a successful person, both in the cruise industry and in the theater industry, as well as a musician and a singer and a voiceover actress. Phew, like so much vibrance. We've been lucky. Like a lot of amazing women have been coming through and getting a ride on the moped with us.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're in for
awesome.
a treat.
Yeah, and she also, I think, has so far Hall of Fame status with answering our traditional ending question.
Yeah, so you got to stick around to the end of the show, or at least use that little lever and fast forward so that you don't miss the amazing thing that happens when we ask our question that we always ask. And at some point, that question is going to be a very secret way to get less expensive merchandise at some point from our merch store. So stay tuned for that special discount we may offer at Christmas time. Subscribe, share, leave comments on whatever podcast medium that you do listen to us on, and keep drinking adrenochrome cola. It's refreshingly elite, and I think that's about it.
Sis, hallo?
Leven.
Bestuur zeker wegen them.
良い一日を。
Sitaki ubenza, anika sirikie.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello and welcome to another ride with the episode Outlaws. Today we are really excited to have our guest Lulu Picart as a musician, actress, and musical director in New York City. She has toured with Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, been a music supervisor for Norwegian Creative Studios, Walt Disney World, and Orlando Studios, and was nominated for a Lortel Award for her work in Disenchanted. Since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, Lulu has helped co-found the Thank You Five, a nonprofit that helps feed medical workers on the front lines in New York City. And there's so much more, and we're about to discover some of it. Because, of course, an hour is not enough to really fully get to know such a dynamic and amazing person. Welcome to the show, Lulu.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Where are you in the world right now?
Currently, today, I am in Ogunquit, Maine, where I'm working on a production of Little Shop of Horrors at the Ogunquit Playhouse. It is beautiful up here. If you have not come to Maine, I've never been to Maine before. It is greenery and lobster rolls and like it's bonfires at night. It is truly just vacation land up here. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Are you on the coast then?
I am about 3 minutes from the coast. Yeah, like right there. And these rocky beaches with lighthouses, and you look like you just walked out of a Nathaniel Hawthorne novel all the time. It is really stunning up here.
Damn.
Wow, well, where do you normally call home?
I know, isn't that a great question? I would also like to know that. I am pretty mobile because of the way that I work, which is project to project. So right now I am kind of based in Orlando and sometimes I'm in New York, but yeah, I've been really lucky to be able to see a lot of the world doing this job. There's going to be a time where I'm like, oh, I got to settle down, like I should be able to buy plates at some point, but right now it's working out.
What kind of plates would you get?
Oh, these are the questions that keep a freelance person up at night, because the amount of times that I've walked into a store and been like, if I had a house, I'd buy that couch. Like that one looks really good. That's the one I would buy. And then I sit on them all as if I'm buying them. And there's just no even hope that any of that is coming home with me. In my perfect world, I would have stuff from everywhere I've traveled. Like that's always been my dream, to have like a plate setting from each place that I've traveled. So when you come to sit at my house for dinner, there's stories about all the pottery and there's stories about all the chairs and there's,
That'd be
Yeah,
cool. You
right?
could have the Maine setting, the Florida setting,
It would
the
be so
Paris
fun.
setting.
I know, wouldn't it be great? And then when you came to dinner on Thursday, you got the Paris setting. We got to talk
Mhm.
about it. And then the next day, you got the Ecuador setting. Be great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. You'd have garage sale chic if you came to my house.
Well, I think that's what I'm building too. Just, just international garage sale chic.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, if you say
So
it's a, streets of Paris farmers market, it has a je ne sais quoi instead of
Exactly.
Santa Rosa garage sale.
And I can tell people, oh, that chip in that plate, well, it happened, on this very romantic street in this very romantic way. They don't have to know how the chips got there.
That's right. Yeah.
you got mad when you saw your boyfriend looking at another man.
Well, that's a lot of assumption, Mark.
That was an attempt at humor, but this dead silence afterward really
It was the
clearly
delay.
made it.
It was the delay. It was the delay. It just
Well, it has,
right.
if you don't take your shot, you don't get there. So, I get a few mulligans every show.
Well, let's ask that because pronouns are so prominent in my kid's life. It's just a
Sure.
part of. So, what are your pronouns?
Thank you for asking. I almost put it in my name profile thing because in theater we do that a lot, like in the name of the thing that we're
Oh, right,
streaming
right.
in. I
Yeah.
can't use technology words right now, but you know what I mean. I would put Lulu Picart, she,
The
her.
computer box thing.
Yeah, in the computer box of the picture pad. Yeah, I use she, her pronouns, and I really appreciate that question because I have a lot of friends who would love to have that conversation opened up for them.
Awesome.
I think it's really important that we make space for that in our culture. And a lot of people are still very challenged by that idea. And it's really not that complicated.
Well, I have the luxury of working in an industry where it's talked about a lot. And the people who live within that reality or within that perspective have the opportunity to talk about it really freely and in a really intimate way, hopefully. And so I think that people who don't understand it probably just haven't been exposed to people speaking about it or being free to speak about it, which breaks my heart a little bit because I've known so many people that do feel free and lovely and have that, what do they call it? They call it gender euphoria, and who have that euphoria of like finding themselves. And I think that that is so important for everyone, not just in gender, but just like find yourself. So it's really beautiful to see it when it happens in someone.
Yeah.
And if people,
How has the creative world helped you find yourself?
Oh gosh, I think in some ways it's a luxury to go from project to project to project and explore a different side of humanity with every project, which is really what I get to do in theater, or what I get to do in acting. I get to, right now I'm doing a show about killer plants. If you've seen the movie of Little Shop of Horrors, right, with Rick Moranis and Steve Martin is in it. Oh, he's brilliant in it. There's still humanity in it to be found, and there's still storytelling in it to be found. And I think it really has shaped who I am. It's definitely shaped the empathy that I have as a person. It's shaped the communities that I've had conversations with that I wouldn't have had conversations with, that I'm really lucky to do. And also having conversations with the audiences about, I've been very lucky to do, or for me to do some pieces that have really kind of like confronted demons in people's hearts. And so having those conversations after the show in talkback or at the stage door with audiences is something that I don't know where else that happens besides theater. Maybe before it used to happen in churches, but I don't know that those conversations are happening anymore. They might be. I might be completely wrong, but it does seem like a really special way to connect with people, to see someone's story that is not your own, that might be very different from yourself, happen from that perspective in a visceral way that you can't turn off and go get popcorn or go watch, you can't leave, and you're experiencing with people around you that might come from other perspectives. I think that shapes me a lot. And I think it shapes me in a really important way. I mean, I could now talk for 30 minutes about how arts funding should be in the schools, but that is what I think theater does for people. It puts different people in the same place to experience the same story from a very specific perspective. And that is so important that we have that access.
That's why they call it humanities.
There it is. Yeah. And people don't think about this, but having theater and having arts is, I've been calling it a luxury, but it's actually a necessity. At least that space to think about abstract concepts. For a human race, that is necessity, right? But for human beings, it's a luxury if you get to live in a place where you're not constantly just trying to survive. And so I think about that a lot, about how lucky I am to make my living in that industry, and yet how important I think it is, even though other people think it's frivolous. So it's kind of a weird balance to strike.
Yeah.
Your
Are there
family,
stories that you are wanting to create and tell yourself? Like, do you have a writing side or a side of you that's a project development part?
Yeah, I think there's always that I'm really interested in my specific generation's story with technology. I was born in 79. I had a computer in my house because my dad was an engineer by like 84, 85. And then we were online by 91. And I feel like my generation, without actually having gone to school to say this with confidence, but I do think that my generation is the last one that had an analog childhood and then a digital teenship. So we kind of are at a really interesting place with our relationship to technology and how much we feel comfortable depending on it, because we had this analog life of maps, right? Like paper maps and just, I can't even think, like long division, whatever that was, cursive. And so when I become in 20 years, will any of that exist? And how much of an adjustment will that be? And I think it's kind of my generation that has the hardest adjustment coming up.
How does that relate to stories that you want to tell, or projects that you want to develop that are personal for you?
Yeah, I think there's a play in there. I think there's a play in there following someone my age dealing with that. It may not be able to be written until the problems exist, which is in like 20 years. But I think for me, there's a very conscious following of my relationship with technology, because I think I want to put that story together later in my life. So right now, that's kind of what's bubbling. And I always have a cabaret show I'm writing for New York, like always. That's always like also sitting in the back of my head.
So it's songs and lyrics and all of the storytelling done through all of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always have like 20 albums I'm ready to record at any time, because that's what it's like being an artist. My head is just like full of them. But yeah, there's a world where there's a performance aspect, and I haven't figured it out yet, of analog versus digital and that story and that experience. And I would love for people that are not in my specific generation, which is very, like, I really think I'm like this slice of life situation. It'd be really interesting if I can get people younger to understand what that shift was like. That takes a lot of time, like to figure all that out. But that feeling of that shift, the confusion maybe, or the mistrust, or the, just not ready to, I think about this with like iPads. I am not personally ready to give up my binder of music. I'm doing a show right now where there are two of us in our 40s in the band. Everyone else is 30s and younger. The two people in the 40s are using paper scores. Everyone else is using iPads. And I can't make the jump. I know that intellectually I understand how great that jump is and how many trees I could save. But I cannot get over the feeling that it's going to fail me at a very critical point where analog has never failed me. And so that's the kind of struggle I think about.
That's so funny because I just saw a show that Mark is in a couple bands, and this one show they were playing in, one of the guest people, their music went all over the stage,
Sure.
and kind of one of the leaders of the band was like, "Dude, get on an iPad."
I know.
Well, wait a minute, Lulu, you've got the highest level of technology, which is the binder, because the binder won't let anything blow off the stage, right? And it's
Right.
not battery dependent.
Right.
There's no glare problem with the binder.
That's
There's
what
no
I'm saying. I also knew there would be a day that I would not have it charged. I don't want to leave the iPad at the theaters. Then you have to remember to bring it back. Too many variables for me. Like, give me the binder. No one's going to steal it. Leave it on my stand. And then I will turn the pages with the hands that God gave me because I know how to do it.
Okay, do you have a collection of those little hole things that you put on the 3-hole punch that when they tear, they reinforce them?
I need them right now because I've definitely torn through them. It's funny you say that because I was like, oh God, am I going to be one of those people that has to go get those obsolete? I don't even know if
Yes,
they carry
you
them
are.
anymore. I mean, back in my day, I was doing the opposite of saving trees. I was putting every single piece of paper in a plastic sleeve.
Oh, wow.
Remember those days? Like,
Yeah, I do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to use those like, I don't know, like I was driving an Oldsmobile around the country. I'd be like, just plastic me up. So at least I've gotten past that.
All right. You know, everything has its drawbacks and positives. So,
I guess so.
I mean,
What
we
are
could,
you? What's
we could
your
explore
role?
what goes into making an iPad. And
Oh, that's
sorry,
true,
Mark.
right? So you
Yeah,
never know which way you're going. You're
right.
basically you're failing either way. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
You know, I had the
Humanity.
idea that
Appreciate it.
maybe one of the things to do would be to do a reality show called The Analog Treasure Hunt, where you take a bunch of these folks who've never dealt with non-analog or
Oh,
who've always dealt with non-analog material, and then put them in a space where they need maps and they need dial-up phones and they need all these things that are and a compass, and then there's treasure to be found, but they have to figure it out without using any technology. It's all, like the whole map and even the car is like a stick shift,
oh,
right?
that's great. Bring it on.
I
Bring on
like
a
it.
stick shift. Could you imagine if you gave someone like a Rand McNally grid map spiral bound book? You know, the kind that you had to like flip back and forth
Yeah.
and
Promises,
see 13.
yeah.
Oh, babe, are you kidding?
What's a
It'd be completely
coordinate?
wrong. Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant.
Oh, well,
Like,
now that we're done capping on the younger generations. I'm
oh, that's
curious,
perfect.
I love all
what's
of
your
you.
role in the current production? Are you a musical director? Are you acting? Are you doing both? What are you doing?
I am currently playing keyboard 2, which means it's all of the sounds that are not the bass, drum, guitar, piano.
Oh, wow.
It's me playing like the organ and the string sounds and anything that could be synthesized that's outside of that normal rhythm section. So I'm playing a lot of spooky organs, playing some strings. I don't normally do this job. This is my first time being a like instrument player in a show in a really, really long time. So this was a challenge that I kind of set up for myself, and it's going fine. Everything's going fine, but it was a challenge, and it's going really well.
That's
How long's
awesome.
the run?
We close September 21st, so 4 weeks is the total run up here in Ogunquit. We did 2 weeks
And
of
do you have
rehearsal in New York.
Wow.
Do you have another project that's lining up for October or not? Are you still looking for something for that?
In October, I'm teaching at Norwegian Cruise Lines. I'm going to teach some music to some singers and get them ready for their next ship contract. And then after that, it's a freelance question mark up in my head. So we'll see.
Wow.
What was your experience like being a part of the Disney world?
I loved it. I got my equity card at Disney World, and that is the Actors Union card that enabled me to go and audition for Broadway. So I'm super grateful to Disney. I was there on and off for 10 years, which is a really long time. I got to open a lot of new shows and I got to do a lot of things. I call it my grad school because their shows are so varied, and they would just say, be a puppeteer. And then I would go be a puppeteer. And then they would say, go sing a cappella. And I would go do that. So I had a great time. I learned a lot. And I worked with some of the most talented people I've ever met in my life. And it was really hot. Those are my takeaways. And it's getting hotter every year. It's so hot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you experience hurricanes?
Yeah. Yes. All the time. I mean, Florida's weather is insane. Yeah, the hurricanes were crazy because you just kind of had to, you're also playing that like hourly workers game where you like wouldn't leave work until you were told to. And the job is like not going to tell you because they're hoping you leave on your own, So it's just like this like standoff while the hurricane's coming.
And the hurricane.
Yeah, but it was
There's a musical in that right there.
It's like barreling down on you, and it's like, who's gonna give? Who's gonna give?
Yeah.
And suddenly you see cast members in various kinds of costumes flying around like a strange Disney horror movie.
Seriously, if you are ever at Disney World, or just, I guess if Disneyland has extreme weather, and there is extreme weather, just know that the people who have stayed, that you're probably really mad at because you're wet and bedraggled, need to be there. Like, they have made the choice to stay there for that hour instead of going home because they either need the cash or they need to be there. So just be nice to them. They also want to go home and check on their dogs.
All right. You may not be able to answer this.
Okay.
Is it true to the rumor that sometimes men are playing Minnie Mouse? Like there's a man inside that.
Be careful, don't violate your NDA.
Yeah, I think there's an NDA there, but I will gladly talk to you about that once that little red box is done recording.
Okay.
Did you do any character appearances that involved being inside a hot costume?
When I was in college, I was in a very hot situation. And then when I came back to Disney as an actor, I was not. However, I did tour China in a production of Madagascar Live where I was in a hippo suit.
Ooh, wow.
With my face was exposed because we sang and spoke in that show. But I was in a hippo suit in non-air conditioned theaters in China. So that once you survive that, you really can do anything.
That's amazing. What do you think are some of the disconnects between what we think about Chinese culture and what your actual experience with Chinese culture was?
Oh, that's such a cool question. I think the biggest thing that I found was that everyone wants to connect. You will go to restaurants and servers will literally give you their WhatsApp numbers, or they use WeChat. They use WeChat there. They'll give you their numbers. Now, part of that might be because I was Western, but also people are just very willing to chat, very willing to connect, willing to tell you about their lives. If you tell anybody that you like anything they are wearing, they will take it off their body and give it to you. So you have to be very careful how you compliment people. And they will always bring you gifts. You always have to have like little gifts with you. But we had an excellent time in China. I thought the people were really great. I made friends with all the translators. So they took us to like tea tastings at friends' houses. And I had some really incredible experiences. The one thing that I think Americans will have a problem with going to China for the first time is their lack of physical space compared to our sense of physical space. So standing in lines can feel stressful or unorganized, and getting ready to go into shops can get like a little crazy. But once you realize, oh, there's like 1,000 million people in China and they just have to get to where they have to get. It's kind of like in New York when you see people jaywalking, and then you're like, this is impossible. How does anybody get anything done here? And then you realize, oh, if they waited for everyone, no one would ever get to cross the street. So it's just so many human bodies in one place, I think, can lead to some interesting things. But overall, I had a great time and ate a lot of amazing food.
Some of the countries you've been to, like Paris, China, like what are some of the most unusual, challenging experiences you've had?
I've traveled a lot because of the cruise ships. So I think, and also just because of life. I was in Kyrgyzstan when I was in college, and I remember I put my clothes on a sink in an old Soviet like hotel. This is such a random story. So I put my clothes on the sink and the whole sink fell off the wall because of the weight of my jeans or something. And that was probably the most frightened I've been is breaking a Soviet hotel in the middle of a former Soviet republic. But that might be the worst. My brain might also just like filter out the bad, but I don't think I've had wildly terrible experiences anywhere traveling, or at least maybe on the recollection, the good things outweigh them. Because anytime you're on a trip, it's an adventure, regardless of what happens. So I think sometimes if you keep a sense of humor about it, you kind of forget how bad like the hours waiting in the airport or the travails of traveling or something. But I've been really lucky. But I love to travel and I love to see new things. I love to eat new things and I love to talk to people about their culture. So traveling and I go together really well. If you are not as excited about those things, I think traveling can be pretty uncomfortable for you.
Do you think that's why cruise ships, they just sort of like you're pretty much traveling the world with your own culture?
Yeah, it's not. I think cruise ships are really great for people who are not ready to travel by themselves or have gotten to a point where the planning just turns them off so much that this is the only way they're going to get there. I also kind of see it as like a preview. So if I go to Mykonos for 2 days and I love it, then maybe I'll plan a longer trip to Mykonos. That's an expensive way to preview. Most people just like watch a travel show, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah, read a book, a paper book, kids. No, just kidding. Don't. That's terrible for trees. Get your e-reader. Yeah, I think cruise ships are really useful for people who don't want to plan it themselves. And if you do want to plan it yourselves or you like to stay in one place for longer, then maybe a cruise ship isn't for you. But I think they are for a lot of people.
Is it hard to be a performer on a cruise ship? Like, what's the lifestyle difference between performing on land in a production and then performing in a ship's environment?
I have never been a contracted ship performer because normally I go on and I'm there for opening week as the music supervisor and then I walk away. But the people who are singing on cruise ships, depending on the cruise line, often have some other duties to do on board besides just singing. They may have to run bingo. They may have to literally have it contracted where they have to go have dinner in the nice dining room once a week and like entertain guests depending on the cruise line. So there are some other duties that would never happen on land.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how the family that you come from. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one sister and that's it. And a pretty large extended family, most of whom are here in the States.
So what is the culture, your nationality?
Filipino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you born in the Philippines or here?
I was born here. My dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled a whole lot. And I was born on Mayfair Air Base in Sacramento, which doesn't even exist anymore. I'm debating whether to tell you to take that out because it's probably a security question.
I don't
No,
know if it doesn't
no.
exist anymore.
You're right. You're right. It doesn't even exist anymore.
It's now part of Space Force.
Oh, well, in that case, it's fine. Yeah, so I was born in the States. My sister was born on a base in Germany, and my father had 11 brothers and sisters, most of whom were in the service or married to someone in the service.
Wow.
So we've all been here for a while. And my grandfathers were both in the service too. So we've been here.
Military family.
Oh yeah. And then the actor kid. Oops.
Yeah. So how does are your mom and dad alive still?
Yeah, they are. They come
And
to the shows.
Okay, so they've welcomed your choice of the theater world.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it helps that I've had some good jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like, my dad has finally stopped sending me Lockheed Martin job postings. But a lot of the family still doesn't really understand it, like extended family, because there is not a history of people working in the arts in our family. Like, it's not a real job, you know? So sometimes at family reunions, I will get asked, oh, so you're on Broadway now? And I'll go, yeah. And they go, what are you going to do after acting? And I'm like, oh God, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing next week. Like, I don't know. So there's still a little bit of, I don't know, validating my job a bit within the family, but my immediate family is very, very supportive.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I hear that Lockheed Martin's forming a new band.
Are they?
No.
What's funny is my dad works for Lockheed Martin, or used to. He retired, and he does have a band. So I was like, is it my dad's band?
Wow.
How do you feel about AI in terms of creative art?
Equal parts nervous and excited, I think. Nervous because I don't want us to lose the humanity in our arts, or whatever spark that is. I think kind of like what we were talking about before, where I think it's both a luxury and a necessity. Like, I think people are supposed to think about those abstract concepts and not relegate them away. But I also have seen AI be a great starting point for people to jumpstart their creativity. I think that's really cool. I also think the automating of administrative stuff for creative people is really, really helpful. But I'm not sure about, I get really nervous about the pictures that I can't tell are AI. I don't like that at all. Like, that makes me nervous. I don't like the videos that I can't tell are people. Like, I don't like any of that. And as an actor, of course, I also go, what do you mean you just made a whole music video with just fake people? Like, that could have been, September Runt for a lot of people. So but I think the industry is going to change. And I think that I don't know what acting jobs are going to look like in the next 10 years. I hope that there are as many as there used to be. I'm not sure about how that all works out, but I don't know. Equal parts, right? Like,
You've done some voice acting, right?
I have. Yeah.
Have you looked into training a voice model that's your IP and then having that be something that's licensable?
I have not. But
That's something that's a possibility for you, where you could get ahead of the curve. People who want to use voice models in whatever production they're doing could find your voice model in a library, and now you've already set up the licensing fees, and literally you could have 6 jobs at once.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna look that up. At one point, this job would never exist anymore. What I'm about to describe, it's over. So I was once in a recording session for what became Coco, the Pixar movie Coco.
Oh, I love
it was
that
not Coco. Oh God, so great. It was not Coco at that time, but I was in a recording session and they wanted sketches. It was super early in the process. They kind of needed like these vocal sketches to go along with what these writers were writing. And they had us in a room. And if the line was, the boy and his guitar. The boy and his guitar are looking at the sea. I would say, the boy and his guitar looking at the sea. And then the director would say guitar again. And I would go, guitar. And he'd go, angry. And I go, guitar. And he'd go, sad. And I go, guitar. We did each word over and over and over again. And then they pieced it together to make the demo. I had no concept of what the actual demo was or like what the actual phrases were. We just kind of had these test phrases and we would say these words over and over again. And I got a whole recording session for that, which was not a huge amount of money. It was like $650 probably for the day rate, SAG rate. But 6 people got that rate. And that is, at that point in New York, it would have been half a month of rent. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
even though you make these tiny little decisions where you go, oh, we can use that and this and that. I, of course, am looking at it from the working actor's perspective of how did we used to piece together these like jigsaw puzzle our kind of finances together. And that is all changing. And so what you're saying is absolutely right. Like you can do that, but actors haven't thought of that yet, right? Like we're used to people telling us what to do. We're used to people giving us jobs and telling us what to do. And now it's kind of shifting, especially with AI, it's shifting to control your product and sell your product.
Right.
Which is administratively, it's a challenge for a lot of artists even. It is a challenge that is surmountable, but for a lot of people, it's a lot.
Did you pay attention to the politics that were going on with SAG when during the strike, and like the piece about AI seemed to be a big bone of contention between studios and SAG?
Well, I also know some makeup artists I've talked to who would create a makeup look for like a horror movie or something. And then when the movie came out, they would have like edited out a tentacle or added a tentacle or added and something. And they're like, that's not my design. And so at what point, in the editing process, when they can do all these kind of stuff, or if they can change a word, if I say, I loved him so much, but it was actually supposed to be I loved her so much. Instead of doing a reshoot, they can now just change my voice. Should they be allowed to do that? I don't know. It's very difficult to kind of parse out. And for student films, of course, I want them to be able to save money and figure it out. But like,
Well, that's the
I
thing.
don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, from a producer's eye, I absolutely see how I want full control. Like that's part of the editing process is you've been given a lot of ingredients, and now with this ingredients, you're going to create the film.
Yeah.
And part of that,
film is already an editor's medium.
yeah.
Right? Like comedy is created by editors. Drama is created by editors. And so as an actor in film, I often feel I'm going to give you this performance. I'm going to give you X amount of takes, and then you're going to take it and you're going to make a movie out of it. In theater, it's all on me that night. Right? So like I am responsible for that journey. You've told me how to do it. We've worked it through. But from 8 o'clock to 10 p.m., it's my energy and I take it from A to B. And I'm responsible for getting myself there. And then I'm responsible for like getting myself out of it. And so it's a very different relationship that you have with the piece, I think,
I think that will always, I think humanity will always want the live experience. And
Stephen Colbert recently said something like that. Stephen Colbert had a like in the last month and a half, he had a quote that said, I think live theater is going to be the new big thing because people will crave authenticity in their experiences. And it's the only way you can be sure that there is an authentic experience.
yes, I agree. And even just this week, my son and I went to an astronomy night with amateur astronomers and all these telescopes set up. And one gentleman had a telescope that took images and kept comprising. So like a galaxy or a nebula that was 27 million light years away, over 3 minutes, you'd be able to see it because the telescope and imaging process would get all that. Okay. My
Right,
son
right, right.
still wanted the experience. Like he looked through the viewfinder of the telescope itself because for him there was a visceral element that was missing in this digital composition.
Sure. Sure. I mean, it's so different to see a person versus FaceTime. It doesn't matter. You know,
Right.
like uh, anybody who's been in a long distance relationship knows that. Like it's different. And also, like, sitting quietly in space with someone is different than an active conversation. Like, you have to create these experiences where we just exist together.
Right. Like even the three of us in the room together would be a far more different
Oh
hour
yeah.
than yeah, yeah.
And I still think there's value in, obviously there's value in this, and we've learned to make real connections this way and to have real authentic experiences. But you also could be like secretly a snake, and I don't know because your avatar looks like you. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that 5 years ago I would have taken as faith, and now you just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah. I am a
Which is
snake,
weird.
by the way.
He's the serpent. I'm the dove.
I picked right then.
I think the key to any theatrical in-person performance is going to be that we don't rehash cinematic characterizations. Like the whole idea of Spider-Man as the new Broadway play, or like I'm much more interested in what the new playwright from NYU is developing, or the new storyteller from Chiang Mai, or I think that that's really a key point, because right now a lot of Broadway, it's a lot to mount a production, it's a lot of money. And the U2 thing and the Spider-Man thing and the Disney things that go there, the reason those productions are placed front and center is because they're theoretically more bankable. But what they're doing is stunting the artistry and the development of the true artistry of what it takes to create that kind of drama and that kind of interactions. And I really think we crave more, because you can see that in the way that we consume media. Everyone wants that new amazing story, right?
Yeah. It's difficult. I agree with you completely. And it's also very difficult to bring that experiences to people outside of New York. Or at least it's difficult for people to invest in those experiences outside of New York. And yeah, New York is really, Broadway is super commercial right now, right? You've got Back to the Future, we've got Aladdin, exactly what you're talking about. All of these old brands that people know are going to work, and they're bringing in the Broadway. Because Broadway is expensive, and tourists are coming. Tourists will pay it's like Vegas, right? They'll pay $150 to see that show. Now you have Hamilton, which is like the dark horse, because if you had described Hamilton to people 7 years ago, no one would ever say that was a hit. And then it just exploded, and it's something original. It's still based on source material, but it is original. It's a new take. It has a POV. It has all the things that excite me about theater. But you're right. And I think regional theaters, if anybody listening knows what a regional theater is, like as a category, it is that theater in your town that probably has professional actors. If you're in a big city, might bring in actors from New York, maybe. But they are producing work that most likely and hopefully has the best chance of getting into those, like the weeds that you're talking about, because they're not produced commercially. Regional theater is produced for itself. They have a budget for each show, and then they just do it, So they're not trying to appease producers 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. They're not trying to make those long-term artistic decisions that might have more commercial things attached to them.
I think what we are seeing is that there's an element of what we'll call quick serve restaurant in these productions that are known. Like when you go to McDonald's, anywhere you go, you know what the cheeseburger is going to be like, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a problem, but I know that the reaction the actual nourishment, the human enjoyment factor is infinitely more exciting when you discover something of novelty, a new take, a new way of experiencing a story. And I'm waiting for America and Europe and all the other countries
Yeah.
to actually bring together powerful stories, because every once in a while we get a sleeper that we didn't expect would give us that kind of experience, right? That's even makes it into the cinematic universe. And I think that's really where the arts are most relevant and also the most potent, because we go in and we have no idea what to expect, and then we have this amazing experience. Because I do not need to see Alien, the Broadway production.
Right. But it sounds to me that you are the type of person that is willing to walk into an experience, either willing to come out a different person, or B, willing to see a story that you don't know a lot about. And some people are not. I think in a lot of times those commercial productions are trying to attract a first-time theater goer or a casual theater goer. And I'm not sure how to make people more risky theater goers, or be willing to just I wish that it was like church, in the way that you go no matter what the sermon is. And if you didn't like the sermon, you just go, oh, I didn't connect with that one that much. And then you go to the next one. Right. But that's not the way that people see theater. It is kind of how they see movies, where you'll go and see, I'm picking someone out of the air, but if you're a Ryan Reynolds fan, you'll go see all of his movies. You might not like one, but it doesn't stop you from seeing the next one. And so if we can bring that sort of audience into theater, where you go, you may not like it, but there is still value in having seen it. And then the next one might be the one, I don't know how to make that happen, but that's what I wish that people felt with that media, the way that they feel with other media.
Have you been able to explore the arts and theater in Maine, where you're at?
In Ogunquit? Well, I think right now the Playhouse I'm at is the star of the show. Like when you type in what to do in Ogunquit, it's Ogunquit Playhouse. But it's a beautiful production. We've got Broadway people in doing, all over the place. So you should come see it. I've also gotten to have a lot of great ice cream, and a lot of great lobster, and a lot of great seafood.
I saw your ice cream post on Instagram. That was crazy.
I shall return because it's only open through the summer, so you feel like you have to do it immediately. Maine seems to be a great place for getting in touch with your thoughts, because there's not a lot to do after the show is over, besides have a bonfire. But it's a really nice. It doesn't feel like reality up here, but it's beautiful. Great. So not a lot of art except us, but yeah.
Isn't Stephen King from Maine?
I think he's up here writing a book a week somewhere. Yeah. Like I feel like they're just floating out of him up here. So I get it. It feels like a retreat the whole time.
Well, does it have like a macabre element to it? Do you feel like creatures in the forest that just out of sight?
There are a lot of ghost walks here and ghost tours in the area. I have not felt anything, and I usually would, I feel. But so far it's felt very serene. There are little gremlins in my keyboard, which might be a ghost, but we're just trying to keep him happy.
What keeps a gremlin happy?
Sacrifices, ritual sacrifices, I think. That's what I think I've been missing.
Mark nominates me.
Well, I actually wanted to delve a little deeper into Philippine mythology. And is there any relevant, like in a lot of Westerners, especially in California where we live, have appropriated indigenous cultural practices like burning sage and, all sorts of things. But I'm curious about your culture. What kinds of things exist that are, for lack of a better word, I apologize if this doesn't land well, are part of the folklore of the Philippine diaspora that might be relevant to getting rid of gremlins, or at least making gremlins appeased and happy?
There is something I could do, although I think it's supposed to happen when you first move in. So I should have done this the first rehearsal. When you move to a new house, my mother always sends us with a little bit of rice, a little bit of holy water, and a little bit of salt. so that that house will never go hungry and also be protected because we're like a huge Catholic country. So that little, usually I think she said you bury it in the foundation of the house when you build it. So she just tends to send it with us when we move. Although I think she might have put it in the foundation of her new house. So that's the main one. It's a very, very Catholic country. So a lot of it comes out of Catholicism. And also, I was raised out of that immigrant generation where they were trying to put as much American rituals in our lives as possible. So some of the things I may not have a great grasp of, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any heartbreak in that being real?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've seen a lot of people my age kind of, or at least being in the second generation immigrant circle, because a lot of the first generation immigrants that came over in the 70s and 80s were just trying to assimilate as much as possible and kind of fly under the radar. So so my age of second generation immigrant generally doesn't speak the language of their native. Like, we spoke English at home. I never learned Filipino. Like, we ate Filipino food, but then like I also have a very, very big comfort food appreciation for American food too. So there's a little bit of heartbreak, but I'm also buoyed by knowing that there's a lot of people in that position in the States that are trying to reconnect with whatever that is, and also reconnect as a Filipino American and not just as a Filipino, because I don't have Filipino perspective. I have a very specific perspective. And I think that is probably now just becoming a very clear perspective for a lot of people, just because of, where we are. It's a really interesting thing to examine. When I was on Broadway in 1776, we were encouraged to kind of live in our identity in that cast a lot, because we were all representing the founding fathers. So I wore an amulet and an earring set that was the fertility symbol of my mother's tribe in the Philippines. And that made me feel really good. Like, I loved wearing that on Broadway and knowing that it had kind of, without sounding white savior myself, like elevating the symbol, to be on an international stage. It was really exciting for me and really important. And I think that with that heartbreak also comes opportunities to have little firsts like that.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, this is the issue with entertainment, but also with our cultural milieu, is that when we try to pigeonhole ourselves into some kind of homogenized ideal of what America is, we miss out on this incredible richness of what it's like when we weave all these different mythologies and fabrics together, and we get to have this amazing, experience of all the depth and complexity and flavors that go with it.
Yeah, I think it's also rudely dismissive not to think of those people. Like, the entire, if you really talk about America, and like I said, I come from a huge service family, right? So like, I've had members of my family in the wars, like doing the thing, designing the bombs, like all the things. So if you're really talking about that idea of what America is, it's like being in a relationship. Like, are you remembering what it used to be, or are you remembering what it actually is? Like, are you working with where you actually are, or are you just remembering your first 2 weeks of thinking you were the only people living here? So like, it's like, open your eyes. People are here, and they need social programs, and they need education, and they are literally living here with you, making life with you, creating the food that is going in your body, and like cooking the food in the restaurants that you're eating. Like, so many things that people for some reason feel really comfortable thinking that society is up here and then other people live down here, and that we should be doing everything we can to like save this thing. And I find that so incredibly like dismissive of the lives around us and all of the feelings and ambition and wants that they have to.
Yeah, I personally, the vision I'm holding on to isn't real, I don't think. It's not what's really happening. It's the promise of this idea of a global community within a small framework, like i.e. Berkeley or San Francisco, right? Which
Sure,
is where I spent a lot of my youth and a lot of my time, or New York, which has right?
sure.
And instead of those being all enclave, where we don't necessarily interact with each other, there's
Mhm.
this possibility that we could get over this egoic identity with superiority or inferiority of any particular culture and actually live in the richness of all of it and be really celebratory of it and joyful about it. And so that's the vision and the hope that I have for this experiment that we call America, that is currently quite shadowed and definitely not what I'm talking about on the reality level.
Well, New Zealand is doing it really well, I think. So I
Well, we
think.
just spoke with a man last week. He went live
Oh,
Monday
really?
that lives
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
New Zealand, and he spoke
yeah.
about that.
Really?
Yeah. Now
Oh,
they
that's
do
cool.
have like the Aborigine. He did say it was more prevalent in Australia than New Zealand, but there is an element of the white colonizer and the Aborigines.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, I'm sure that's
Right.
true.
Right.
Yeah, I also live in that Star Trek post-famine era, post-scarcity life. Like I really do. And borders confuse me sometimes because you know what? Country borders have changed from the map many times since I was a kid in school. Uh, and so I also tend to have that global kind of thing. And I know that people really viscerally feel the other way. And I've had conversations with friends of mine who are like, "What do you mean you don't think?" Like and I just come from that global perspective because I've traveled a lot, because I lived a lot of places, because my family is from somewhere else, you know. Uh and I think that I think the danger is that you can think you do create it, but it's all online and it's all virtual. And then you forget and then you go into the real world. I think that
Yeah.
is the danger, is finding like a bubble that thinks like you on the internet and then making that your life. But in reality, when you go to Target, it's like everybody in their own little bubbles because no one is using real society as society anymore. They just have these virtual societies that don't actually interact.
But that's what you said earlier at the beginning of our conversation is you're having these experiences with audiences and your shows have this dark element, the shadow of the heart. And so you're interacting with people. And I think ultimately that's it. Like I could tell you one of the things I love working with Mark in this realm of podcast is we've had some real heat and like a butting of heads, for lack of a better term. And in my experience so far, it's never personal, like I'm a bad person. It's more like he's angry and I'm present
Mhm.
and we find our way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like a relationship. I mean, it
It
is a
is a
relationship,
relationship.
right?
Yeah.
With society, where that turning point. Maybe you don't, but there's this turning point sometimes in relationships where you're like, oh, if we fight, we don't have to bail. We can work through it, and it's a
I have
real.
never experienced that in my life.
There's a real turning point, right? Where like you can say, okay, at least for this long, let's just say bailing is not on the table. If bailing is not on the table, then you must fix things that are going wrong because otherwise your life is crap, right? So like it's a really valuable thing to be on the same page about for as long as you can be on the same page about it. Um,
It's true.
but I think that like society kind of has to go the same way. These relationships that you have with people, like there are people. Don't get me wrong. There are people where I'm like, I don't think we have to have another conversation. Like I think we're done. It's good. But then there are other people or groups of people that a disagreement doesn't necessarily mean you walk away from the table, right? Like, as long as you stay at the table, if you can stay at the table, that's the important thing. At least
Yeah.
you both know you want to be at the table.
Yeah.
I mean, we're saying this also post debate and also post like a lot of things that have happened. So I've been thinking a lot about how people communicate through their differences, you know. But it's a tough one.
I love that staying at the table though, and that's part of what I practice, I hope, is even staying at the table with the person I'm like, "Fuck you, I want
Yeah,
out of here so badly." Just sit there in the
yeah.
fire and see if you can make your way through.
I stole that phrase from Jeffrey L. Page, who was the choreographer for 1776, and we got into some really difficult conversations in the creation of that piece because it talks about the slave trade, and we had people of African descent in our cast and in the room, and so we had to really talk through that, how we were going to treat it in the room and treat it on stage and all that kind of stuff. So we had a lot of really difficult conversations, and that was his advice to us was in all of this, just don't drive someone away from the table. If you have something to say it in a way that will keep them there, even just for yourself, like so you can keep, and it
Yeah.
really stuck with me.
Well, and I love too, maybe that's a societal thing, is we start off respecting and loving each other. And then, like you were saying earlier about relationship, we keep that in mind so that when things are heated and like Lulu thinks Greg is the fucking worst person she's ever met in her life, you could go like, "Oh, but months ago when we came to the table, I know that's real. So I'm going to
Yeah.
chill here with this. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
moving."
Well, and you're talking about like keeping someone's humanity forefront, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
which is
That's it.
really, really important.
Yeah.
And it's also a concept we have in improv. I don't know if either of you have worked with improv theory. Yeah, what's up? Where it's that
improvers.
where it's that concept of we all want the scene to go well.
Yeah.
None of us want the scene to fail. So if you tell me it's a blue vase and I think that is the worst offer in the whole entire world, I'm not going to hold it against you because I know that you want the scene to work, right? Like, maybe not the easiest offer for me to deal with, but we're going to get through it because we both want the scene to work. And so I think that helps a lot, where it's not personal, where I'm not just like, why would you put a blue vase in my way when I clearly said the room is orange? Why would you do that? Instead, we just work through it and we get there.
Yeah.
So this gets dangerous because every time someone says the word improv, I actually want to do improv on the show. And Greg and I have done it a couple times. It makes him really nervous. But I'm like
ready.
an improv junkie. You're ready? All right, Greg, are you willing to consent?
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we need some kind of scenario. Lulu, do you want to set the scenario for us?
Yes, I think we should be in a space station.
Okay, we're in a space station. Do you want to assign characters to Greg and I or not?
No, I think we should discover that within the scene.
Ooh, okay.
All right, we're going to limit this to like 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're in a space station and we don't have anything else to go on that with that.
Nope. I think no, let's just leave it there. We'll leave it there. Space station.
Got it.
I'm ready.
And action.
Hold on, the translators aren't working. Let me set this. Hello, this is Space Station 24601.
It's nice to meet you. I'm so glad. I've been stuck in space for 2021 parsecs, and I'm really hungry.
Oh no! Hey, do you have the replicators online? Now this is just a Star Trek. Do you have the food replicators online?
Yes, but all they turn out is borscht.
Borscht. Oh no! Well, we'll be rushing to get you something new. Isn't that true? Okay. Well, let me type some stuff in. What kind of protein do you like?
I like yak butter, and I like hoof stew.
Oh, hoof stew! That's great. We got a number 29 coming right up for you. Hold on.
And devil's hair pasta.
Devil's hair pasta.
You've never had devil's hair pasta?
We just used the last devil's hair yesterday on the guy that came in. What am I going to do
Oh,
now?
well, if I've lived this long in space without it, I can go another day.
You know what I have for you? I have for you the best Martian stew you've ever had in your life. There is a slight psychedelic effect, but I think you'll be fine. Hold on. Try that. Feel it?
The taste is so electric.
Yeah. And there's a little tingling at the top of your head, too. Feel that? Makes you kind of want to. There is a weird side effect to that. I didn't tell you. It makes you use a whole lot of words that start with M. I feel it happening.
Mama.
There it is. Isn't it good? It's good, isn't it? It's made by Campbell's. Delicious.
And Steve. That was good. I applaud you both.
Thank you.
I noticed you stayed the heck out of it, Greg.
There wasn't a place to come in. I thought you guys were doing great together.
This is so much fun. I really appreciate your adventurous spirit and the way you've shown us all the different aspects of yourself today. It's really been a treat to see the world through your eyes. Please stay in touch. We'll of course put all of the different social media things, but you'll need to send us some. You sent us a few today, but yeah. Greg, you've got the Instagram, right? So if there's anything else we need, people want to hire you, how do they get in touch with you? That sort of stuff.
All right, yeah, just let me know.
We have one more question that we ask all of our.
Before we do that, it looks like you're working with a nonprofit. You have a link to like some earbuds, but was it part of like raising money for?
Yeah. Let me take the nonprofit off because I was raising money for someone, and then I have, like it's just an affiliate link for the earbuds. We don't have to talk about it. But thank you. Right. Yeah.
So is there a nonprofit or something with the Asian community you're involved with right now?
Not right now. Nothing active at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. But thank you.
All right. So this is our all-important tradition for Moped Outlaws. Okay, besides adrenochrome cola, which is also important to our life. Do you want to ask, Mark?
M&M or food?
Wait, say that again because you broke up. M&M or what?
M&M or Foo Fighters?
Oh God! Oh no! Oh no! You can't put those two against each other. That's a bad one. That's a tough one. Oh no! I think. Oh no!
I love this. This is the best response in a long time. Oh, I love it.
They're both foundational to their genres of music. Okay. Now or before?
It's up to you.
We live in the now.
It's your answer.
Yeah, good point. Sorry.
We just have to acknowledge that it got a little more complicated this week with Dave Grohl's announcement of having a baby out of wedlock.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. That's very true. I'm trying not to let that.
That's a hard one.
Eminem's a great dad, so that really helped. That doesn't help out at all. Okay, I'm going to have to go with Foo Fighters because both of them were groundbreaking in their own genres. This is, oh man, I hope Eminem never hears this because I respect you a lot, buddy. Like, I think you're awesome. But because the Nirvana disco flap could not have happened without Grohl, I have to go with that because I think that set up so much rock in the 90s.
Oh, hey, Eminem, if you could see the pain on Lulu's face, you'd see how much this hurt her
I respect
answer.
Eminem so much. I respect you so much. I just have to, like that was a tough one. Whoa, that hurt my heart.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
That's the hard questions, the hard-hitting questions here on Moped Outlaws. And of course, I'll take this moment, as I usually do, to say I would love to see a collab between these two. Be
Oh,
a
yeah.
really epic thing for the 21st century to have the Foo Fighters and Eminem do a track together.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if either of you or anyone in those two circles are listening, please make it happen. Lulu, it's been such a blessing to have your presence here. We are so grateful for all that you bring, your creativity, your courage to be yourself. The world needs you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've had the best time being here, and I hope everyone out there has a great day.
Recording stopped.